Nadine Dorries, probably one of the most interesting, baffling, certainly, MPs out there. Picked, or shall we say, plucked from relative obscurity. In fact, before this, very few people knew who Nadine Dorries even was. Maybe some people out there were familiar with obviously her whatever her books that she had sort of written before she became an MP. So maybe people were sort of familiar with that. But politically, no one really knew who Nadine Dorries was. No one knew at all. But there is one thing that Nadine Dorries has really been, because she was pretty much, as we said, plucked from obscurity into the Department of, Culture, Digital and Media. She very, very quickly became known for all, absolutely ridiculous takes. And of course, in the, shall we say, downfall years of Boris Johnson, known especially for her staunch support of Johnson, even at one point being kicked out of a Tory group WhatsApp chat because while they were all busy talking about what do we do about Boris, in comes Nadine Dorries saying, guys, we shouldn't be talking about this. We should be talking about loyalty to our Boris in chief. So, but today, at least I think it is today, or at least this evening, we will be getting Nadine Dorries's very, very first grand televisual debut on Talk TV. Yes, for some reason, the people at Talk TV thought it would be a good idea to give Nadine Dorries a talk show. Not only that, an interview talk show. And of course, her first guest is going to be Boris Johnson. So we will probably be going over that full interview at some point because I highly suspect that it will be absolutely glorious in many ways. But what is interesting is some of the stuff that's been released before it, because she has been openly attacking other Tory MPs, saying that they are the fault, that this is why the Tory party is failing, and this is why the chances of the next election, as she says, are terminal. And just remember, yesterday we had that, poll from the Telegraph saying that the Tories are likely to become Westminster's third party. What? So things are going on in the Tory party. And it wouldn't surprise me if we get more flare-ups like this. Certainly, potentially not from Nadine Dorries, but maybe, people like, good old 30 Pence Lee, and maybe Jacob Rees-Mogg, maybe a couple of these other, bigwigs. Like I say, when we had, just recently, we had even Penny Mordaunt have a go at Lee Anderson's appointment to being the deputy party chairman, because it's a pretty important role. And he's basically just a scandal magnet. So, yeah. I keep on telling you just how ready they are to go to war. And I think the catalyst is going to be the general election loss. And I think it just really the question, as a lot of people have pointed out before, just how big this loss is going to be. So, today, we're going to go have a quick look at what Nadine Dorries has said, or at least some of the things that she's apparently said in this sort of program, and of course, another couple of things as well. But of course, it's Nadine Dorries. Let's all sit down, have a good time. So, as always, before we go jumping in, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, do remember to ring the bell as well. And of course, there is the YouTube thank you button down below. There's the Patreon page, there's the Pony Club. And of course, as always, guys, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. So, over we go today to The Independent, with the title of Nadine Dorries to stand down as MP as she admits the Tory election chances are terminal. And she's standing down as an MP. Yet another Conservative MP who is standing down, because by the looks of it, they know they're going to get absolutely trounced. So, rather than, shall we say, having to run up to the next general election, they can, shall we say, get on the job market just a bit earlier, as we've been hearing. So, Nadine Dorries. Oh, let's get that. There we go. Nadine Dorries has revealed she is standing down at the next election, warning that the Tory party's dismal poll ratings are terminal. The ardent Boris Johnson ally made the announcement just days after starting a new job hosting the show on Talk TV. In a clip released ahead of Friday night's programme, Mrs. Dorries hits out at Rishi Sunak supporters, claiming that they were responsible for the Conservatives' drop in popularity. I do agree that, Sunak supporters are probably responsible, but what about Boris supporters or even Liz Truss supporters? But you go. She also blasted the Tories for, quote, infighting and stupidity, and claimed that Mr. Johnson had begged her to stay. What? Look, put it this way, the Tories were infighting long before Boris Johnson got in. Long before Boris Johnson got in. Oh. So, there we are. So she says that the elite, the Fox, the Fox politician intellectuals, you know who I'm talking about. Those who believe they know better than anyone else, bet everything on Rishi's bounce. But it never came, and it was never going to, she said. The party was 5 points behind on the day that Boris was ousted, and the poll deficit would have just burnt away like a summer's mist on a morning lawn in the heat of a general election campaign. Today, it's 24 points behind, and that, my friends, could be described as terminal. It leaves the party boxed into a corner with no exit route. Okay. Right? Boris's lead was -5 points. Dorries is making the claim that, oh, don't worry, somehow, if Boris had been in charge, that would have gone away like that. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. People were fed up of Boris by that point. Didn't matter. The poll ratings, I think, had Johnson remained in, I think they'd be potentially just the same, if not even lower. Because that was the way that Johnson's popularity was going. Not just Johnson's popularity, but the entire Conservative Party's popularity. And remember, Boris ran on a populist platform. When you're not popular and you're a populist, that's a bit of a problem. But anyway, she went on to say that those MPs who drank the Kool-Aid and got rid of Boris Johnson are already asking themselves the question, who's next? And I'm afraid that lack of cohesion, the infighting, and occasionally the sheer stupidity from those who think they could remove a sitting prime minister who secured a higher percentage of the vote share than Tony Blair did in 1997, just 3 short years ago, that they could do, and that the public would let us get away with it. I'm afraid it's behavior I just now have to remove myself from. So, okay, many reasons, of course. We've talked about this before many times, the different things that played into, Boris Johnson's big Brexit win. And that was really it. It sort of farmed Brexit. He farmed that, that 2016 Leave vote. He built these coalitions that were never going to last. And even then, under his watch, he was slowly crumbling. He was like the wallpaper, but the crack behind it just kept on getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the wallpaper was starting to stretch. So people knew they had to get rid of him. They could not stand to have Boris there anymore. The polls were already starting to dip long before anything. And now we've got the COVID inquiry. We've got these inquiries into Boris Johnson coming up. Do you really seriously think, Nadine, that somehow Boris Johnson would remain popular? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But anyway, she continues. So, and I'm afraid That lack of cohesion and the infighting and the occasional sheer stupidity from those who I think that we could remove a sitting. Oh, I've already read that. So here we are. The former culture and media secretary told her studio guests that, quote, regicide is in our DNA in the Conservative Party. But she added, I think where we are now, how the party is behaving now, I don't see any other way. Fight for what? Fight for who? People are only fighting each other in my party. She also revealed that Boris Johnson begged her to stay, saying, he doesn't want me to go. He said, Nads, stay. The decision has followed much soul-searching as she wants to distance herself from the infighting, she said. She probably doesn't want to take part in it, or at least maybe, should we say, make clear the air just to make sure she's got, a future of a potential job. But anyway, that's the worst, the weakest, and the least attractive position for any government to find itself in. There is no way on God's earth that those who plotted to depose Boris Johnson expected to be in the position we're in today. No, the whole reason they got rid of Boris Johnson was just because how bad he was. That's how bad he actually was. They wanted to get rid of him because he was just proving to be such a god-awful liability for the Conservative Party. The polls, his popularity were already tanking. And they wanted to get rid of him. They had to get rid of him. And Boris had already been put on several times, throughout all those scandals of, right, this is it, Boris. Time to clean up your act. Oh, sorry, Boris, you've really got to clean up your act this time. And then, of course, eventually, as we always said, it would be just one scandal too many that took Boris Johnson out. And that was eventually what happened. And it was Sajid Javid and, of course, Rishi Sunak that stood up and just went, nope, we're not being part of this anymore. And just, left. And no one wanted to form a cabinet with Boris Johnson as the leader of the, not only the Conservative Party, but of course, PM. So, the Conservatives are now polling worse than in 1977 when they were thrashed by Labour. Other Conservatives who have decided to quit the next election include the former Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, Matt Hancock, former Environmental Secretary, George Eustice, and even the Levelling Up Minister, Deborah Davidson. So, yeah, this continues on the flight that we have seen of many, Conservative MPs. They know they're going to lose. So, might as well just leave now, and then maybe we can, maybe come back in the next election. Who knows? We'll see. But yeah, that interview is going to be wild. It is going to be absolutely wild. There's already a couple of, I think, clips floating around of it. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to say the least. But Nadine Dorries, I think, who's more delusional? Liz Truss thinking that, it was the left-wing economic establishment that did her in, or Nadine Dorries somehow still thinking and believing that Boris Johnson was the bee's knees and that he could do no wrong and all these scandals that he was involved in just didn't matter. It's difficult to say who's the more delusional party. I think, to be honest, they're certainly on an equal pegging, but who knows? Anyway, as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Of course, do remember to ring the bell as well so you get notifications about the channel. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.